Namaskar and a very warm welcome to the show. I am Neha Tripathi. Today we are going to talk about the fuels that we put in our vehicles, specifically for road transport. We all go to pumps and get our fuel tanks filled with either petrol, diesel or CNG. But we never think how this fuel makes commuting so easy for us, how these fuels help our vehicles move. Today, we take this opportunity to tell you all about your vehicles, fuels, commuting, etc. Also, our reliance on gasoline to fuel our vehicles is expensive and harmful to the environment. Wouldn't it be great if we could replace oil with some other source of power that's efficient and clean? Today, we'll put light on this angle of the story as well. To discuss the science of fuels with us, we have Professor Kamal Kishore Pantji. He is Professor and Head at Department of Chemical Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. And we have with us Professor Kaushik Saha. He is Assistant Professor at Center for Energy Studies, IIT Delhi. Welcome to the show, sir.
Namaskar.
Let's start with the basic. What are these different types of fuels that we put in our vehicles? How do they power our vehicles? As in the composition, and where are they coming from?
It's a very good question and important. Different kind of fuels are used, right, in the vehicles. There are mainly petrol, as you said, petrol, diesel. And nowadays, new kind of fuels which are called renewable fuels. These are biodiesel. Then hydrogen is also the clean fuel. So that is also being used. And you must have heard about the battery also. So now new kind of fuels which are battery driven fuels. So that is also being.
We go to the pumps and get our fuel tanks filled, with whatever is required as a fuel in our car, like petrol, diesel, CNG, etc. So how does this fuel actually help the vehicle move, Professor Saha?
So petrol cars are typically spark ignited. There is a spark plug, and in diesel there is no spark plug. So the diesel can ignite under compression. If you compress it enough and temperature pressure is high enough, it will ignite automatically.
Okay.
Now what happens when this ignition happens? The chemical energy contained within the fuel that gets transformed to thermal energy, and then there is expansion of gases and push on the piston. So this piston moves up and down. So when the combustion, that is chemical energy conversion to thermal energy, takes place, it creates a push on the piston. So piston moving up and down, and this push on the piston puts and imparts the energy to the crankshaft, and crankshaft is connected to the axle of the cars and vehicles, and these axles end up moving the wheels. So this is how the energy generally transferred from the fuel energy to the motion of the car or vehicle.
How does petrol and diesel, if we talk about these two liquid form of fuel, how they differ in this process?
Yes, actually they have the difference in composition. And both are derived from the crude oil.
What is the composition?
Actually, when you see the petrol and diesel which comes from the crude oil, we have a distillation column. And from the distillation column, you take out the different fractions. So petrol is a lighter fraction basically, and diesel is heavier fraction. So sometimes we call it the middle distillates, which is below middle distillate. Sometimes you call it a heavy fractions of that after middle distillate. So if you look at the carbon content, because both are hydrocarbons, if you look at carbon content, then petrol is carbon which is C5 and C12, between C5 and C12, and diesel is C12 plus. So it means the diesel has higher carbon molecular weight compared to the gasoline or petrol which you call. So because of this, there is a composition difference. So petrol engine are different and diesel engine
which are
different. See, if you talk in terms of the power, the gasoline engines, petrol engines are better. But if you talk in terms of efficiency, then gasoline. But nowadays it is difficult to predict which one is better, because NOx, which pollution which comes, is more with the diesel engine. So now the government has banned the diesel engine. That is what the discussion.
General public actually thinks about buying a petrol or a diesel car in terms of the price of that, and says that now there is no difference, we can buy petrol vehicles as well, because earlier they used to prefer diesel vehicles because diesel was cheaper than petrol. Nowadays it's approximately the same. So what should they actually look for while buying a vehicle?
While they're looking for buying cars, obviously they expect it to run for at least 5 to 10 years, depending on how they use it and maintain it. And then, as we all know, that Government of India has prescribed that Bharat Stage 6, BS6 emission norms, will be put into place from 2020 onwards.
Okay.
And the kind of emission regulations the government is trying to implement, keeping in mind the environmental aspects and climate pollution, it will be very difficult for diesel vehicles or diesel passenger cars to comply with those emission norms.
Okay.
So at this stage, generally it may be profitable to go for petrol or CNG based vehicles. And also the automobile manufacturers also are keeping in mind that they have to meet these Bharat Stage 6 emission norms.
Okay.
So naturally the sale of diesel cars is going down, and petrol and CNG based vehicles are more promising
popular,
right now. Yes.
Okay.
So they should look for petrol or CNG based vehicles at this moment.
Yeah, actually nowadays you must have heard of hybrid engines also. So sometimes you can run your vehicle, say biodiesel plus diesel.
Okay.
Biodiesel is a renewable fuel. So what you see in your plant materials, so palm oil, say, which was earlier cheaper. So palm oil was used to make this biodiesel. Then jatropha, karanja, these kind of seeds also were used. You extract the oil from that, which are non-edible. And that can be used for trans-esterification reaction. You can convert it into biodiesel. The biodiesel has less emission compared to the diesel. So if you have say B20, sometimes you must heard, so we call it 20% biodiesel is blended with the diesel, and then you can improve the efficiency, and this will give you the less pollution. So that is one advantage when you use these kind of renewable fuels. So of course the diesel, because the life and maintenance of the diesel engine is difficult, because the soot formation, that is known as carbon particles, fine carbon particles. So that creates because of the diesel engine. So more carbon particles goes into the environment. So if you look at the winter season, so you may have more smog formation, where the soot particles, they settle down, and because of the cold weather, and they create the problem. So you have to use either nose plugs or something. That's the health hazardous problem. Another, the most crucial is the nitrogen oxides. We call them NOx. So with diesel fuels, because I told you it is a lower fraction comes from the distillation column. So because of that, this sulfur is more in the diesel. So sulfur oxides is also more. So what Professor Saha said recently, that the BS6 norm is now about to come, or it has already come in fact, and that has the low sulfur, basically less than 10 ppm sulfur. Whereas you talk BS4, it is 50 ppm sulfur. So the government has directly jumped from BS4 to BS6, eliminating BS5.
Very nice.
Because of the environmental laws.
That would help, of course. We'll get back on all this. It's time for a short break, and after break, we would know why you have to get down from the vehicles while getting CNG filled, but not while getting petrol and diesel filled. Stay tuned.
India Science is an internet-based science TV channel initiated by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, implemented and managed by Vigyan Prasar. India Science on the URL www.indiascience.in is a bilingual channel with content in Hindi and English. It can be accessed on any internet-enabled device. This video platform is dedicated to science and technology knowledge dissemination with a strong commitment to spreading scientific awareness, especially with Indian perspectives, ethos and cultural context. The India Science mobile app can be downloaded from the Google Play Store and Apple Store.
Welcome back after the break. We are talking about the fuels that you put in your car. This time we'll talk about CNG. Professor Saha, how does this CNG works?
So CNG is compressed natural gas, and if you talk about Indian resources for natural gas, the eastern offshore, western offshore, Gujarat, Assam, these are the locations from where natural gas can be obtained. So India does not need to be dependent heavily on imports for compressed natural gas. Now when we get this compressed natural gas, generally most cases it is okay to use, but there are some impurities like ethane, butane, propane or hydrogen sulfide. So those can be taken away, and that process is not as cumbersome or detailed or expensive as diesel or petrol. Naturally that affects the lower price for the CNG.
जी.
Now these CNG are generally just like petrol or diesel. They are stored underground in tanks, and through pipes and siphoning system they are brought into the dispensing stations. And those dispensing stations have compressor which ensure that it is compressed.
Okay.
So because natural gas is in a gaseous state compared to liquid, density under normal atmospheric condition is very low. So they have to compress it. So they compress the natural gas to 200 to 250 bar.
Okay.
So 1 bar is 1 atmospheric pressure. So they compress it to pressurize it up to 200 times the atmospheric pressure. So that in a small volume they can put in lot of compressed natural gas. So the typical storage capacity could be 10 to 15 kg of CNG. Okay. And that is basically pressurized at 200 to 250 bar. And then from that CNG tank, some pipelines is created which feeds into the engine.
Okay.
So something called intake manifold for engine. So there from where basically air comes into the engine. So there they feed the pipelines into that intake manifold, and then CNG comes with the air into the engine. And in spark plug there is a ignition source that ignites the CNG. And CNG and air mixture starts combustion.
Yes.
So that's how
this thing happens.
Yes.
When we go to the pumps, we see a machine from which we get, the petrol and diesel and CNG filled in our tanks. But where this much of petrol and diesel, as in they are functioning the whole day, whole night, where is it stored and how it is brought? Like if it is finished and then how it is brought? We don't see that generally.
See, as the Professor said, most of the time the petrol and diesel, because it is a liquid, right? So most of the time it is transported through trucks or lorries, right?
Okay.
And if you look at from refineries, they come from through the pipeline. So so a lot of underground pipelines are there, and through pipelines you have so large size, say maybe as high as 2.5 to 5 meter in diameter and long. So in between there are boosters which increase the pressure and then helps in pumping.
Okay.
So for liquid it is not a problem. If you look at here in the CNG cost around 42 rupees per kg, right? And compared to petrol, diesel, which are more than 65 or something like. And when you talk about the fuel density per kg of this, so it is very high in the natural gas compared to your diesel or petrol. But only issue is that it is to be compressed to make that much mass.
Yes.
Volume wise, it's a different because it depends. For a gas, you have some rules, right? Temperature, pressure, and then you will have gas. But if you compress it like a pressure of 50, say 250 atmosphere or 200 atmosphere.
Okay.
So the cylinder which you are using, that is also a kind of safety required. Otherwise it will become like a bomb.
So that's why we have to get down while you are getting.
So because from
CNG
220 atmosphere pressure you are taking it to a lower pressure. So lot of say chemical thermodynamics come in between, and pressure safety, because the temperature is falling, right? When your pressure is high and coming to a low temperature, so there will be cooling also. So because of that there are certain issues. And second thing is that it is a gas, right? Although the flammability, if you see compared to the hydrogen, it is better, safe. But still, even then, there is a safety requirement. And you
what kind of risks you see in terms of fuels and in terms of fuel stations, Professor Saha?
I think safety should be maintained for any kind of fuel, whether it is CNG, diesel or gasoline. Generally, like smoking cigarette and all those kind of
those are written there that you should avoid all these
and
things.
Then while you are driving away, you should not drive very fast from the, suppose you have forgotten to take out the nozzle from the, or you are driving very fast for some reason, due to friction, some sparks flying. So you have to should drive away slowly from the petrol station. After you have done filling the tank, payment, you should drive slowly, not in rush.
Okay. Does this temperature difference or weather change, this affect the volume of the fuel stored, and how is it managed?
Basically, the volume of gas is a function of temperature and pressure.
Okay.
But if you talk about mass of the gas is not a function of temperature and pressure. So this is even when the hydrogen-based hydrogen-based cars are also available. So whether it is CNG or hydrogen, the same safety norms and same storage issues are there.
Okay.
So with hydrogen also you have to store it at very high pressure, and it again becomes like a hydrogen because safety. So most of the time you must have heard about that CNG car got fired because it caught fire because there were not no safety measures were taken properly. Or
At
sometimes
that
during
time,
summer season.
earlier we used to listen, hear these stories of, cars catching fire or vehicles catching fire.
Right.
But now we have,
now because the design has been improved,
with time we have improved
those
on
issues
that.
have been removed.
Professor Saha, you want to add something?
I want to add a little bit more point that when the typical Ola Uber cabs, which are now being retrofitted with CNG type, so many times to save cost, they go to not the authorized dealers or authorized agents who are supposed to modify your car for CNG type applications. So people need to should think about the safety, not just saving money. So the appropriate fuel lines, insulations and other things, whether any leakage is taking place or not. So preventing leakage is very important.
Very important.
And as both of us mentioned about the high pressure, so naturally the leakage portion needs to be taken care of very seriously, and the maintenance every 3-4 months is of utmost importance to prevent any kind of underperformance or any kind of accidents. So that is very vital.
Okay, we are talking about these three only. There are other types of fuels as well. Professor Pant, if you can highlight.
See, other types of fuels which are, because everything is related to the environmental norms. And as I said that the government has restricted, or even entire world is now looking at green technology, green process, and in terms of the climate change. So because of the usage of this petrol and diesel, because these are generally derived from the fossil fuels. We call them fossil fuels. So coal, petrol, or even natural gas, so diesel. So these are a kind of the product which have come from the fossil fuels. So fossil fuel contains the carbon and hydrogen. So whenever you burn a fuel, you will have the carbon dioxide right, from this. You will have the unburnt, so hydrocarbons will be there, and sometimes you have a carbon monoxide also. And then, like in diesel fuel, because you are compressing the gas and using the oxygen at high temperature, so nitrogen oxides also come. All these are causing the pollution for the environment. So because of this, the fuels which have low carbon to hydrogen ratio are preferred. So in fact, what I will say, high hydrogen to carbon ratio are better. So pure hydrogen if you take, right, so fuel cell, you must have heard, fuel cell vehicles. So fuel cell vehicles, because hydrogen is on anode side, cathode side you have oxygen, and they are close together, and there is a combustion, the product is water. So now water is not a problem. So that is the advantage with the pure hydrogen. So hydrogen based fuel cells, the vehicles have come up, so several technologies have been developed for hydrogen-based fuel cell. The only problem with hydrogen-based fuel as of today is the storage of hydrogen. Because either you should have a system like on-board reformer, we call that. So you have the fuel source. So hydrogen is basically a carrier of energy. It is not a fuel. So if you have a fuel source like methanol, ethanol, or these kind of, say, petrol, diesel type, you reform it. So by reforming, you generate the hydrogen. And this hydrogen can run your vehicle. So that hydrogen or CNG, both are similar in that way. Both can be used.
And they can be helpful. It's time for a short break once again. It's time for a short break. After the break, we would learn from our guests that why are all diesel vehicles going to be banned and what would happen after that. Stay tuned.
India Science is an internet-based science TV channel initiated by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, implemented and managed by Vigyan Prasar. India Science on the URL www.indiascience.in is a bilingual channel with content in Hindi and English. It can be accessed on any internet-enabled device. This video platform is dedicated to science and technology knowledge dissemination with a strong commitment to spreading scientific awareness, especially with Indian perspectives, ethos and cultural context. The India Science mobile app can be downloaded from the Google Play Store and Apple Store.
Welcome back after the break. As I said earlier, why we are banning these diesel vehicles and why they're going to be banned, when are they going to be banned, and how are they going to affect us? Professor Pant.
See, diesel engine, as we discussed in the beginning, right? It depends on the sulfur content of vehicular fuel. So petrol, diesel, all these contains the sulfur, right? And some compounds of oxygens also, we call them oxygenates. So the diesel, when you burn, so it gives you that it's a compressed and then burned in presence of oxygen. So because of this, because the air fuel ratio is generally 10, more than 10 something for efficient burning. So air contains nitrogen, and because of that also you have lot of NOx. So nitrogen oxides is a big problem when you talk about the diesel. The second thing I told you, the soot formation, because diesel fuel contains C12 plus hydrocarbon. So definitely more carbon, right? So you will have more carbon in the product. And because of the incomplete, so most of the time if you see the efficiency of this ICE engine, internal combustion engine we call them, it around say even less than 30%, right? So it means rest of the fuel remains unburned if you are not utilizing your, and if the engines are older and older, then efficiency goes down. And because of that, it means you have more and more carbon particles which are going into the environment. And this is a big issue in terms of the diesel, what we call diesel soot. So although all these automobile companies, they are working hard to design the kind of diesel particulate filters. So generally at the exhaust, the filters are kept, and these filters capture all these carbon particles. These are very fine micron level carbon particles, just like you say PM2.5 or PM10. So these filters can trap these ones. But even then when the efficiency is poor, right, and the finer particles, because either it will plug because pressure drop will increase when your filter is completely plugged and you are not replacing it. That is one issue. Second thing is that quality of the fuel, which I said that sulfur in diesel fuel BS4 has 50 ppm, and because of that the lot of sulfur dioxides goes into the environment. So government has now made it mandatory that these diesel fuels should be banned instead of look at some kind of clean fuels. But if you have the good kind of the engines, right, where the efficiency is high, the sulfur free diesel, right, high quality, where all the refiners are also working, then I think these can be continued.
We are talking about clean fuels. I would like to stress on ethanol, which is being mixed with petroleum to be used these days as an efficient fuel. But how will this addition increase the fuel's efficiency, and to what extent?
See, this is a very critical question. In fact, I will not say the improvement in terms of efficiency, but as Professor Saha said, that it's a global issue, that we are talking environment now, right? So vehicular efficiency you leave apart one side. The fuels like methanol, ethanol, these are called clean fuel. And you must have heard 2G, right? Generation, that is second generation bioethanol, third generation bioethanol, fourth generation bioethanol. And in fact, in IIT Delhi, we are cultivating the microalgae and we are converting into fuel. So these are called renewable fuels, right? So the idea of adding the renewable fuels to a fossil fuels is we are just because renewable fuels are the plant material, they are growing, they are capturing the carbon dioxide. So in one way we are saying we are capturing the carbon dioxide from the environment by utilizing these fuels. So if you use say ethanol, it is called bioethanol, then overall engine performance, because it has oxygenates. Whenever you have an oxygenate in the fuel, the combustion energy decreases because the oxygen compounds are low fuel value, heating value. So overall it decreases. But if you talk in terms of combustion efficiency performance of the engine, it improves. Because so Brazil is already using up to 30% ethanol in the fuel. And now India also, they are adding say 20%. Initially it was 10%, now mandated 20% of the ethanol. But again the availability of ethanol is become an issue. So although some of the refineries, they are setting up the 2G generation ethanol based plant, and that hopefully it will come in future.
We have to work in that direction, very true.
Another important thing is that we are working on coal to methanol. In IIT Delhi, we have a project where we are working on coal, which is high in ash, but we are developing clean technology and converting this into methanol. Methanol is also one of the blend for this. But in fact, in future, it may be 100% methanol that will drive the vehicle. And that is a clean fuel compared to the hydrocarbon mixture.
Center of Energy Studies, is it doing something, and which fuel we will use in future as per you?
Center for Energy Studies, along with other departments in IIT Delhi, for quite a few decades have been strongly working on hydrogen. And Professor Pant has already mentioned that in hydrogen there is no carbon, right? So all these PM emissions, soot emissions, they automatically goes away if you use a hydrogen. And our senior faculties in the past 10-15 years have demonstrated how hydrogen can be used safely for bus, auto and 4-wheeler, 3-wheeler.
Okay.
So they have already demonstrated it.
Yes.
So far, the practical implementation of hydrogen has still not had taken place, but we hope it does take place because hydrogen has a strong potential.
Okay.
The way CNG is used, we hope that hydrogen is also taken into account and implemented.
Yeah.
So that's
one word answer because it's time for closing. We know that hydrogen is the cleanest fuel. From this discussion we came out. Which is the best fuel as per your opinion, sir?
Yeah, I
Both
think,
of you.
see, if you have the proper technology developed then, and with high efficiency, then every fuel will be good. But only thing, if you ask the question best, then of course hydrogen is considered as the
How do
best
you
and
see,
with high
Professor
energy.
Sir?
Yeah, I agree with also because hydrogen, if you took a per unit mass basis, it has a very high calorific value.
Okay.
So if hydrogen can
So
be
we
used
should-
safely implemented, so hydrogen still has the potential to be the best fuel.
Okay, so we should try and switch to hydrogen as a fuel for our vehicles. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you.
That's all for today. Hope you liked our show. You can share your feedback on the given email ID. Till then, goodbye.